Well, hello everybody there. Hope you're there. I'm having the usual stupid issues with all the stuff after I've been practicing all day and it's just not there. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay because I cannot see anything going on. So annoying. Welcome. We're back. Well, we're sort of going to be back hopefully very soon. Um, I don't know what is going on. We had it all set it up and now it's just not working at all. We'll get this going, don't worry. Working things out as usual, but we are getting this there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, Here we go. I think we've got this now. Let's go. And there we go. Away we go. We are here. Thank you everybody for your patience as usual. Let's start off with welcoming back with the tech issues, of course, even though I practice all day with this. But that's the way it is. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you're all well. We are back after being away for a period of time. And we have appreciated everybody's patience with that. It's been an interesting period of time, let's say that 6 months in many ways. Let's get the chat back on the screen for everybody so we can see what's going on. And we'll get that out. Oh, man. Pop out the chat. Like, this is just typical. Here we go. We will get it on and we'll put it here, and not expecting me to be so disorganized because I literally practice all day this. Anyway, we're here to chat about things. It's great to be back. I'm just stalling for time, as you can probably hear, to get things up and organized. Let's quickly take a look at what is going on locally with us, and then we'll pop into the big question, what's happening. G'day to Brad, g'day to Oscar, g'day to Rachel. Hopefully everything's all working now. Yep, there was no sound originally. That was my usual good old YouTube workouts, but we got going anyway. And hello to Mr. Sharp and everybody's, hope you're well. Right, so quickly we got this situation moment. We've of course got this on True Flow, but we starting just after lunch today, you can see this upper cloud stuff coming through this virga, this light rain that's not reaching the surface, but very indicative now of the upper level winds now starting to move in from northwest, which is attached to this trough. You can see this line of showers and some quite heavy just off the coast, which is basically a bit of convergence between that onshore flow and this sort of new system pushing in from the west. Expect that already drifts closer towards us overnight, just the normal occasional showers. Nothing exciting yet, but I guess the biggest thing is what is happening this week. Before we turn to that, let's have a quick look at what is going on locally and we'll look at radar rainfall for the week. So we can see today not much in terms of showers whatsoever. A few light ones around the coast, that's about it. But 7 days to 9 a.m. this morning is looking reasonable given that we had such a dry April. And so it's been nice to see some falls. I'm going to make that a bit bigger because that looks small. Let's go up a bit. There we go. Oh, now too big. Never too big. And yeah, some decent falls off the coast, of course. That was with that trough activity earlier in the week. This line here, just ignore that. That's interference from Terry Hills. It's not some sort of special radar beam or the 5G or the tinfoil hats, that sort of stuff. And you can see basically everybody did all right, except for a couple of spots down near the Mayor of Camden's Way and up near Mr. Wentworthville, Mr. Well, if he's around. Otherwise, most places did reasonably okay, given that it is winter, moisture is not as prevalent around the place, and we had such a dry June. But otherwise, not bad. Let's have a look at the satellite because this is the place that's going to be the interesting picture. So I'll make that a bit bigger now and I'll zoom back out for everybody. And let's go. So we've got, this is a water vapor through, so we're just going to loop through 12 hours in, then we'll stick up the visual as well and check that out. But earlier you can see the greens you can see on there, and like the dark greens and so that aqua bluey colors, and then also the yellow colors are moisture, and obviously upper level moisture as well. So that indicates moisture pushing right through, and that's high cloud up top, of course. And you can see the surface. Sort of, if you look at it like an onion, you can see it peel back, and you can see the surface, this um, lighter sort of grey fuzzy stuff. And you can see quite here, especially in this picture here, which is a great sort of indication. The different layers, you can see the surface layer here, and then you can see the upper layer sort of feeding across it. And you can see that has actually increased during the day, and that's what I was sort of raising about this morning when we had that fog, because that was very indicative that the column, which is basically from the surface all the way up to the tropopause, is getting quite moist, and that's thanks to this approaching system dragging moisture in. So it's now gone away from just sort of that onshore flow that we've had all, basically for 2 weeks now, which is really just a symptom of that blocking high and the ridge pushing onshore and picking up some of the moisture from the southern Coral Sea in northern Tasman and bringing that onshore. And you can see that it was fairly low level stuff, basically up to mid levels, which is why the showers now got more than light. But that sort of switched and pivoted overnight as this moisture from the west started coming through too. So now this is more than just that ridge pushing, and it's actually now feeding and getting sucked into this approaching system, which is the important part about whatever happens this week. Is it's got to have fuel, and there's plenty of around. I don't know if you've noticed as well, but I noticed particularly just late last night, I think it was, and just overnight, it went from that sort of cold, sort of damp feel that we've had, for a couple of weeks now, which is indicative of, that colder moisture. And then it just started feeling more humid again, and that not overly sort of gluggy and swampy like we had, through March, of course, but definitely a lot different to we've had the last few weeks, and you can just feel that sort of the atmosphere getting a bit heavier and a bit gluggy, and that's sort of happened throughout the day too. It hasn't been anywhere near as cold or feeling as cold, even though there was sort of a lot of cloud and some showers pushing through, and that's in part thanks to this approaching system sucking that in the air in from the Tasman and getting ready to tap into it and use it for whatever happens this week, whether it's a trough, low, ECL, whatever it is. We'll find out, I guess, very soon. We'll have a quick look at the visible, and we can see obviously the terminator come in there, but you can see, I'm going to slow that down because that actually gives another good indication about this, the two layers of stuff. So, of course, we've got on the coast here, you can see the lower level of that stuff. You can see it's not very crispy white like the stuff out here. You can see quite patchy and sort of like cotton woolish in clumps, and that's very indicative of a maritime flow pushing on shore. Very indicative. You can see these lines of these showers as the air pushes across the water and picks up the moisture. It forms of like these little trains, these little lines, and you can see then just real change. You can see this bank of stratocumulus, or probably outer cumulus there towards the afternoon, just basically sitting in the one persistent. That's where those like you can see that line of showers here as well, and that's really indicative of the two air masses now starting to push into each other and collide. And you can see, of course, this activity to the west, and we'll go out, zoom out to the wider sort of sat pic in a minute. You can see how high that cloud is going, and it's quite solid cloud, which obviously indicates depth of moisture and really the depth of the trough that's coming through. And you can see these lines on top of the sort of upper level cloud, which indicates the shear and the quite strong winds, which is incredibly important to see if we're going to have any sort of low, whether it be an ECL, Tasman low, or even a deep trough. You really need that jet streak upstairs to really help wind up anything that gets going. And you can see very clearly with this cirrus here, these anvils, getting all that sort of sheery, sort of fibrousy look heading towards the east, and that's that upper level winds definitely kicking in. Those lines here are very, very telling about the very active jet stream up above, which is what I guess we need to see if there's going to be any sort of activity come this weekend. But it's looking good. We can see there's obviously some sort of upper low as well moving through. So what we'll do now is we'll zip out and have a look at Australia, the continent wide, and we'll take it a bit in from 9 a.m. this morning. But let's move that up, and we can see a couple of interesting features with that. So again, we've got the onshore feature here from that ridge well out to the east, which again is very important, because in order to have an ECL, we need a blocking high basically to cradle and trap any sort of vorticity or low pressure system near the coast. And you can see that flow coming in from the east, sort of northeast, is very indicative of that ridge just sitting there, not moving and doing much. And it has been for days now, to be fair. And you can see this streaky cloud coming here from way up near the top end, and that's that jet stream activity I was telling you about, which is wrapping into this surface low here, polar low. And you can see a lot of cold air with it too, with this speckly, motley cloud, sort of pushing in through southern South Australia and obviously very far eastern WA. And you can see a beautiful cyclonic curvature there. So we'll pop in and have a look at that very shortly. And we'll actually look on windy because it gets a bit easier to look at. Yeah, then the other thing too, of course, is the upper system here. And you can see, these things are never like like a line in the sand, like one side or the other side. It's quite a complex setup where there's obviously different layers of it. And you can see the initial phase sort of coming through here and then the deeper stuff back well over SA at this stage. So, come on, you stupid thing. And of course, attached with this area here now. Some of the models too have been flagging this sort of becomes a sort of occluded or cut off low, which basically means it gets cut off from the westerly stream, which it really is doing now. You can see that the cold air pouring up from, sort of Antarctica and the polar area, and then starting to get cut off from that westerly sort of stream. And there's another massive surge coming in from behind it. So it is a very active time. And I just quickly, I cannot remember. And we're going to bring up windy now. I can't remember really a time when we've had so many active upper systems passing us through for a long time. Every year we want to see, upper troughs coming through because obviously upper troughs in winter equal activity for us and seeing something in terms of weather-wise. And it's been quite active, and just unfortunately that the surface system is now starting to sort of start to show the impacts of those, weak or no climate drivers whatsoever, and that moving and transitioning across to, which potentially an El Nino towards the end of the year, whether it's, super, whatever it might be, mega, whatever word hyperbole they want to use, but it does sort of looking like those areas are warming, of course, which, will have knock-on effects for us, less moisture available. And I think that we've seen that in the past couple of weeks when we've had, decent sort of troughs. You can see here, it's quite a decent coastal trough. It extends all the way up into sort of southeast Queensland, but just limited surface moisture. And so we get these very, very sort of shallow showers, which are nice to sort of keep things at least green, I guess, and sort of top up things, but really don't give any substantial rainfall in terms of coming into winter and growing season. Although, the West, thank goodness, had that northwest cloud band only last week, which delivered some pretty good falls. And anybody who's a sat pic connoisseur, on the visual picture, you could actually see quite a lot of that water running off down through the Murray-Darling, which was great to see, and that'll give them something to last a few weeks into winter. Of course, as things start to dry out with this the Enzo situation, if an El Nino does come, any water that falls now in that catchment obviously is going to be very handy. All right, so let's have a look at this. We'll wind this back now. This is obviously windy. It's going to load for a second, so don't stress about that. We're going to look at just what's going on. We've got the radar overlaid and we've got visible. We might have to go to infrared. I think we'll see how it goes, if there's a picture or not. Let's go. Of course, it's going to go. Okay, windy. Let's go. Why is it always everything works perfectly for me and then I get on this thing? Here we go. All right, so you can see here, this is the sat pic from earlier this morning. So of course it windy shifts between the infrared at nighttime and then the visible at daytime. So you'll get that shift very soon as the sun rises. And you can see here that that low and I was telling you about over near WA, and if we zoom out, it's probably going to cause it to have conniption. But you can see just how deep and that cold air is coming from. And like we're down now to the edge of the Antarctic continent. And you can see the cold air streaming off Antarctica and getting caught up here. And this mottled sort of cloud here is very low level, and it's indicative of very cold air. And then this upper level cloud indicative again of that jet stream activity. And then you can see the cold air being wrapped into this low It's pretty polar low to be fair, but it's not a very deep aggressive one at the moment. But still, it's very important. And then of course you have this other system coming here. So what I was saying before about active, this is it's not getting close to a long wave trough because you can see how far the trough reaches up north into the northern of the continent, right up into the in Arafura and Timor Seas, which is interesting, dragging a bit of moisture down, not a lot though. And then you have this other one here, which this is, and this is Rossby wave activity as well. You can see this long wave trough here, and the reason they're called long waves is because obviously look how long they are, really essentially. But you can see here low and a polar, well to the southwest of WA. But you can see it extends way back up into the sort of central and sort of northern central Indian and almost into the western central Indian. That's quite substantial, and that's a great thing to see coming into this time of year because these are the sort of things that bring good rainfall for the interior of the country and also Western New South Wales, and so that's great for the growing season. And also, as I said, given the Enzo situation, but again, and another one coming from behind, and this one's even more significant because you can see here quite a patch of very cold air. Like this air is incredibly cold, and then you can see again colder air wrapping into behind it. So it's good in terms of pretty ski season people like who are starting to sort of would imagine getting worried because there's been no sort of substantial snowfalls yet, but the pattern here you can see is quite a few long wave troughs lining up. So you got one here, a short one here, and then a massive long one coming through here. But of course they'll ebb and flow, given it's that far away. But that's what you want to start seeing in terms of a whole range of things, including snow for the snowies and inland rain. But also for us, it's great for sparking off activity off the eastern coast in terms of Tasman lows, east coast lows, and even coastal troughs. So getting to that, let's have a look at this now. Look, the chat's disappeared because I've taken this all over. My bad. Sorry, I'll bring this back so we can see the chat. There we go. You're back, chat. I was too busy yapping away. But back to this, and we can see when it's going to load. Of course, it's going to be problematic. When it does start spinning its wheels, come on, windy. And there we go. You can see the sun come up. You can see just that cold air with it wrapping in, but you can see it dragging down, which is the best thing. And you can see how the cloud is thickening as it is actually entering into New South Wales, which is indicative of that moisture coming through. And you can see if I slow that down, let's just go to. I can't slow the speed here. Go through the menu, but anyway, I'll just manually advance it. You can see here. You watch this moisture and this cloud here, which is indicative of the high pressure over here in New Zealand, streaming towards the Aussie coast as the Terminator comes across and brings the veil of darkness. That is, and also this low that is also helping as well. So high down here, feeding into the low, which is also wrapping around and throwing this moisture waves. And you can see these lines of moisture loosely organized as it pushes in across the coast. And that is what we want to see to feed any sort of system that is coming. And again, it is looking very interesting. And I suppose I woke up this morning to see fog, which is, given that all the weather we've had the past few weeks, it's been quite moist in the surface. Haven't had a real lot of fog. And that's when you start to know that there's moisture is building. It's not just this shallow stuff. Looking at the next model forecast, you can see obviously the cloud mass is coming through slowly, but will be dominated by low cloud tonight and also some upper cloud moving through too. So probably mostly cloudy, partly to mostly cloudy. But in saying that, it's going to be also quite mild too. So models this morning had 14 to 17. I think it'll probably be definitely around that range. It'll feel quite humid, but it won't feel that cold humid we've had for a period of time. It will feel a little bit more swampy, not too bad yet, but you can definitely feel the atmosphere sort of loading up and compressing and squeezing as things start to actually happen for a change. All right, that's enough rabbiting. Let's go and have a look now at what is forecast. We'll do the usual winds first and see just what it's throwing for us. And then we'll obviously then have a look at the precipitation forecast and see what they're throwing out. And I'll show you them what the ensembles are showing too, because I just updated them. And Not sure if anybody knows the difference between ensembles. I do mention it sometimes, but I'll just clarify again. You have deterministic models, which are basically the ones that run, every 12 or 6 to 12 hours, depending on, just how much they run them. So, for example, the major ones, GFS, Access, and EC, run every 6 hours. They have an 18Z and a 06Z run, which is basically the sort of an extrapolation of the major run models, but the major ones where they get the fresh data in from, from AWSs and from planes flying across and satellite pictures and all that sort of stuff, they ingest the data from the 0Z and the 12Z. So this time of year, I think the 0Z is back to like 9:30. So 9:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. Are when those big main ingestion times are. Or was that earlier than that? I don't know. I always lose track of time when it's 0Z. I know it is. It must be soon because some of the models are coming out now, so obviously can't be. Oh, because that's this morning's run. Yeah. So 9:30 and 9:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. And so about this time, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll start to get the major models morning runs starting to pump out. So we'll start to see GFS and Access, probably the 0Z models for that. So that's from 9:30 this morning. EC is always the last one to come through. It's a bit slower than the others. The AI ones tend to come in a bit earlier too, so we'll have a quick look at them, what they're throwing at. This one here is EC, and I think that's pretty going to be the older stuff, 18Z stuff. So we might just pop up that. Oh, no, there you go. It's brandly updated just then, 24 minutes ago. Beautiful. All right, let's hop into it. So this is EC, and obviously we can watch here. That's that polar low we were talking about before. We're going to skip ahead to Tuesday because that's when activity sort of starts. Well, it says it starts to run up. Now we're on wind gusts, which is so we can just see the different surface. Oh, this is what's happening at the surface, obviously. You see that low there, sort of still wrapping into Adelaide, and you can start to see this activity pushing through, and you can see this building off the coast here, quite a deep flow. You can see that east-northeasterly, and that sort of looks reminiscent of those coastal trough scenarios that we had back in last year, for example, when we had that pretty bad flooding out in the mid-north coast, horrific flooding actually. This sort of fetch here is quite significant. You can see because every kilometre that's wind runs over that ocean, and of course, the northern Tasman and southern Coral still quite soupy. It's obviously the mid and lower parts that aren't as cool, but so there's plenty of ocean for these winds to run across and scoop up moisture and then drag it across the coast, which is important thing to remember. So when anything gets going with it, it's a trough, it's a low, ECL, they're looking for, a deep moisture source to create that instability because the upper levels will be colder, the surface levels will be a lot warmer and more humid, increases the instability of the air rises. And that's when you get that explosive, cyclogenesis, or, when it's called bombing, when, lows go from basically nothing to, Pasha Bulka type within 12 hours. That's the sort of stuff that you really need to help wind things up. So you can see here is quite a massive fetch of moisture at the surface. And if I was to quickly show dew points, you'll see that it's actually quite humid. When we look at that, you can see those oranges. That's quite a decent go away. That 18-degree dew points, 19 degrees. That's for this time of year, that's still quite good. And you get down to us, you get 17-degree dew points, 17, 16, 17, and that's amazing for this time of year. We're only a week away from winter. To have 17-degree dew points is really sort of that even autumnish and pretty late autumnish. So that's really going to help wind any sort of system up, whatever decides to form, if it does form, which we'll all discover very soon. But yeah, so that's very, very important in terms of that. And you can see that this low out here in the western South Pacific is really helping wind up, and then this high pressure system here in the Tasman, which is really stayed there now for days and days. It's not overly strong, as you can see, but it's and doing enough just basically to sit there and lock in these systems as they move to the east. All right, let's go. So Tuesday, we can see things starting to wind up. We can see really that deep northeasterly feed. Then you can start to see this little click and that little tweaks in the bends in the wind streams. And that's interesting, is that colder upper air starts to head towards the coast. You can see the surface over here. You can see it start to actually relax and wind down, which shows you that the focus is moving now from this stuff here across to the east coast. So we're going to now zoom in and just focus on us, because we know what the broader scenario is now. We've got obviously high pressure to the east, fitting quite a long fetch and moist fetch into the system. And you can see that obviously that western stuff there over South Australia is really starting to ease off. And you can see here this trough starting to form, and it's just quite weak here, but you can see it starting to amplify, especially down here. Now, that's pretty easy, giving it's a good first impression that maybe it's focusing on maybe the central south coast or southern Illawarra, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, let's see as we push in. Into Wednesday now, and of course we didn't see anything sort of on the other forecasts until sort of Wednesday, Wednesday night, Thursday. So you can see here weak low pressure system fitting down on the southern or southeastern coast or eastern coast of Vic. But you can see this trough very clearly off the coast of New South Wales, and then we get to see, so EC is pushing that up. You can see here fetch pushes down, that little trough is actually that low is dragged it sort of away, and not much happening here at this stage of the EC. So it's going to be interesting to see. Is it going to bomb us all and disappoint us all? Probably. And then, okay, so this is where it gets interesting. So you can see the initial stuff has then died off and moved south. And then we still have quite a deep, decent, almost strong feed from the northeast pushing in. You can see there's little kinks in the feed, but generally it's pushing in. And then you start to see here this southerly start to race up the coast. And this is important. And this is what we're going to be watching in terms of, again, this is obviously the upper cold air moving across into the Tasman, and it's sucking. And you can see here, really start to really ramp up, and this is when we start to watch now to see where any sort of low feeds. You can see the kinks in the wind streams. You can see the winds wrapping around. You can see this area here, and you can see it really start to increase quite, into gale force along that southeast coast. And you can see the actually pushing into us, and then see how those wind streams are then at the last minute then hooking around and slowing down. That's definitely a decent trough heading towards a deep trough. There's no real sort of vorticity here yet, but there's definitely a trough forming along the coast here. You can see it pushing down and then hooking back through us. So definitely the focus is going to be on the Illawarra and us on EC side of things, but no ECL just yet. But I mean, troughs can be just as moist. You can see that trough still hanging around. You can see that wind coming in and slowing down and hooking back up through us. You can see that southerly putting really flogging in on the along the coast up into us. So plenty of moisture. So you get this cooler stuff colliding with this warmer, moist northeasterly flow. Quite a strong trough across there, but no east coast low yet. So, or any Tasman low. So that's interesting. But again, troughs can be more prolific in terms of rainfall than ECLs can be, because they tend to be anchored. And you can see here, this thing is just anchored in, and it's just sitting, hammering us now for at least 24 good hours. So I'm assuming EC is going to have some decent moisture for us, and possibly even some storms, embedded storms as well, because you've got this moisture. And you can see here, it's starting to just get this vorticity just starting to begin, between Newcastle and Sydney, just off the sunny coast. This vorticity is starting to wrap up into Friday morning. And that's what we got to watch. But yeah, it doesn't. You can see that flow, that southerly still racing up. And you can see the troughs sort of start to detach and move across. As you can see this southwesterly flow on the western side, obviously wrapping in the back ends of it. I imagine that's pretty going to be dry and cool. And you can see it just really shoving off. You can see here weak sort of Tasman low trying to get going. You can see this really gale force southerly really ramping up. And then you can see that's going to bomb into a pretty massive Tasman low. But look at that. I mean, that's pretty nasty. You've got 66 to 70 knots there, which is about, 130 Ks gusts, which is pretty significant. And then you can see this westerly flow on the reverse side of this. So you can definitely EC at this stage is going for a deep sort of trough and sort of brief, sort of lowish, but then booting it off into the Tasman, and obviously behind it. And and then another sort of system coming through early the week after that. Whoa. And that's northwesterlies as well. Are we going to get a taste of those winter horrific westerlies? Look at that. Whoa. Um, that's pretty. Wow. That is getting 60 knots into the southern Loire and the south coast, and even into the Blue Mountains. You've got 50 knots. You can see just how much the Blue Mountains protect us, thank God, from these winds. They sort of skip us and then sort of fire off again. But that looks like those horrific August westerlies that we can tend to get, except this is going to be at the start of June. So nice. I guess we'll see if it comes off. But at this stage, EC is going for the deep coastal trough. All right, let's go in a bit further. And we'll look now at what acts. Well, go GFS first, see what it's doing. Don't be surprised, GFS doesn't really pick up things on sort of the macro level. It's more very much the picture. But you can see here, it very much is agreeing already with EC in terms of this deep northeasterly feed. You can see with the convergence to this deep southeasterly feed, so northeasterly. So the cooler feed here wrapping into the warmer moist feed, which is great for obviously to create rain because the two systems. And you can see it wrapping into this trough in the western New South Wales or central New South Wales. You can see again how their winds are hooking in. Then this one, GFS actually focuses a little bit more in the Illawarra, not so much us at all. And you can see it then shifts into the south coast at all. So GFS is not loving us. So I'm assuming what we're going to see is GFS is going to be pretty light on the rain. But then you can see it. Okay, so it throws a bit of a spanner into. So what we're seeing on GFS is what we saw in EC, but a bit day later. So we remember EC had it sort of down here and cleared out, and then you can see this low trying to wrap in, get going here between the Illawarra and us on Friday, and you can see it retrograding towards the coast. Doesn't really wind up though, and then sort of pushes apart. So it's really, and then this massive Tasman low starts to form, and you can see that subtly nasty southerlies come in on Saturday and Sunday. Pretty much what EC said is that Tasman low bombs and really gets going nasty. That's really interesting to see if it's going to have these. Well, it does too. Look at that. Wow. Yike. It certainly does, but GFS doesn't spare us as much as EC does. Look at that. Those winter westerlies coming through. Oh, lovely. West norwesterlies. Oh, welcome winter. Lovely. Okay, so we've got those takes in it. So that's ECGFS. Let's have a quick look at Icon. Icon should be picking up stuff now, even though it's only 5 days. Again, pretty much what we saw with both EC and GFS. Yeah, stuff hanging off the coast. What does Icon do? Northeasterly flow, pushing in quite deep, you can see, and then again wrapping into us, and then pushing very quickly down the coast, unlike EC, which held it. And you can see here, Icon really, that's interesting. So it sort of goes with a bit of both. It's definitely not an East Coast low though, because it's off the coast, but it definitely has that sort of Tasman low, but extending that trough back onto the coast, and really wrapping up here. But that's a drier sort of westerly flow there. So I don't think we're going to see much rain on the old Icon thing. And then you have that nasty, look at that wrap into that Tasman low. That's nasty, nasty, nasty. And then I'm assuming on the reverse side, it's going to bring in those winter westerlies if we had anything longer than 5 days. All right, so 3 out of the 5 major models now are going for that. Let's go for Access and see if it's going to give us any slack. And then we'll look at the ensembles, what they're doing. You can see pretty much again, although it has this sort of batch of winds a bit further off the coast than the other 3 models. It's probably going to be a matter of timing again by the looks of this. That's looks like the upper colder air is not going to coincide with the surface stuff, and so one's going to slip off and run away, and the other one will bomb later. You can see here, Axis already is a bit different to what we saw with both GFS, Icon, and EC in terms of that it keeps that broader sort of northeasterly wind field way off the coast, and instead brings this southerly up. Now, right up into us. Let's go back onto us. We don't need to go down there. And you can see that southerly surge pushing in through Thursday night. And then you've got this little bit of curvature here. You can see that northeasterly sort of pushing in and starting to wrap down into this. And that's obviously as the trough, you can see just the wind's just turning around here. You know, quite a gusty sort of southeasterly onshore flow for us, which won't be very good for showers because they don't normally aren't. And then you can see here just the start of a low starting to develop off the Hunter Coast, very southern mid-north coast, but really nothing. You can see here that bend in the isostreams there, but nothing sort of focusing on the coast. So it looks like Axis has had a pretty significant downgrade today, and then it pretty much follows the other three models and bumps everything off the coast. So it really looks like it's a timing issue again. So this again, of course, is different to what the morning models show, which that obviously this close to an event obviously always worries me because timing, which we all hate and we all know it's very frustrating. But it's really going to be now about when the upper stuff arrives in response to and the surface stuff as well, and where they connect. Because if they don't connect, then it is just going to be Tasman low and everything dragged off, as you can see here, happening with all the models we've seen. But that's one run, so that was very different to what this morning's run was. So that's interesting in itself, whether it's flagging a pattern shift, which it could possibly be, or if it's just a one-off. You know, we having some hopium or copium, don't know. But what we'll do is we'll now have a quick look at the ensembles, which have just updated, and we'll see what they've got to say. And they may give us keep losing the chat. They may give us a bit more sort of look into what's going on. All right, so we're going to look at this is the mediogram, and you can see there's GFS, EC. Obviously, Axis is not that because Axis they're not used outside of Australia. And there's other high resolution models as well as Medio Blue wrapped in. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 models we've got wrapped in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in for you, and we'll focus on the precip stuff because that's it. So you can see here, this basically covers all of the week. And now you can see what I was saying this morning. You can see the general, each one of these lines represents a different model and a different, obviously, run. And ensembles basically run differently to deterministic. So what we just saw then from the other models is a one-off run. These are all average like runs over a period of time. So it's not just one-off. They take, obviously, there's a lot of calculation and math that goes in the background, but basically it takes, you know, the mean or average, whatever you want to call it these days, of a number of runs. And so it's supposed to give, you know, a smoother pattern detection for, you know, all these sort of situations. And you can see here, obviously, this is temperature. And what you see here is the precipitation. So the blue bars going down are basically rainfall per hour. And of course, the longer these bars drop down, obviously the more rain per hour, so obviously the heavier the rain. And then these lines are the accumulation. So as they steep up, that shows you obviously how much rain is falling. And you can see, you know, there's one here that basically goes from about 80 to 320 mils from Thursday sort of lunchtime afternoon through to Friday lunchtime, so in 24 hours, which is obviously very indicative of something, whether it's a deep trough or a low very close to us, causing it. And you can see these blue bars pushing down, which is the precipitation in millimeters per hour. You can see it's pretty much consistent. So the coloring of this is important because the lighter is obviously one run. So you can see here, this is one run, says, you know, down to maybe 4 millimeters an hour. But when you get these darker bars like that, the persistence in that means it's, you know, that's a number of models agreeing about this force. You can see here, this big batch of blue, basically from, you know, so Tuesday night, early Wednesday, right through to Saturday, there's pretty uniform, consistent agreement across all of those ensemble models of pretty decent rainfall, as you can see right across. And then you can see the spaghetti lines here. Like, you know, there's quite consistent groupings, some down here, and then some obviously the outliers up here. But generally speaking, between 80 and 160, it's pretty much where most of them sort of fall. Again, which indicates some pretty consistent rainfall through the later half of this week. Whether we see that happen or not, I guess is still the big question. But these sort of ensemble models are better for giving you sort of clarity about picture. Sometimes they can be slow though to adjust to the nuance of a changing weather pattern. Whether it might be the case this occasion, these upper troughs, can be quite annoying, as we know. But who knows? We'll see them what these throw out for us in the morning. But this has been consistent now for a number of days, and you can see here, this is just cloud cover, and then you can see the wind direction and speed, and you can see pretty dramatically increases in the latter half of that week. So, the normal onshore flow here, and then you get bumped up, and you can see these are the wind roses where the directions are coming from, and you'll notice, predominantly from the south and southeast, and that obviously whatever system is, whether it's a trough or a low, sort of winds up, and then you can see, the rapid swing to the west southwest, which is usually indicative of the wraparound flow or the back end flow of something, trough or a low moving away. So I guess we'll find out. But it's definitely thrown out a complete different scenario to the other models have as to what they had this morning. Let's go and now have a quick look at what the accumulated falls they are still showing on the models, because that might give us an idea. Look, I'll show it the Bureau's ADFD. So this is the manually sort of slash drawn one. And so this is a combination of model runs and data as well, but also then the forecasters actually have an input into this as well. That's their deterministic model. And this is the sort of stuff you see actually on their website. You don't actually see access on their website. You see this product here, and you can see, it's fairly strong signals here of 100 to 125 and sort of 80 to 100, for the rest of it. So, and this is only for 5 days. If I remember, it's not like even, so it's this week. So, it's interesting days ahead. And as I said, troughs can be better for accumulated rainfall than lows can be, especially if they're not going to be cradled, or how strong the upper system is, how cold it is. There's a lot of stuff that can influence lows, whereas an anchored trough, as we all know and seen, can be prolific rainfall producers. All right, let's have a look at, we've seen what Axis G shows as wind-wise. Let's have a look what it shows in precipitation-wise, and I think we're pretty seeing that now in terms of that. So you can see here the difference already in the Bureau's product to what we're seeing here in the models product. You can see Access definitely keeps some good falls on the coast, but you can see that trails are very significantly, and you can see here again there's western falls associated with it, and quite clear system here. There's obviously a split in timing between the surface part of it and the upper part of it. You can very clearly see this this huge gap here, and you can see the falls kick up off the coast. So that's pretty much indicative to me that there's a timing issue, which is always worries me. All right, we'll go to we'll have a look at GFS, and we'll quickly look at GFS AIO. You can see GFS is still pretty much in love with decent falls across this, even though we saw the surface pattern before, which that's interesting. But you can see these massive falls off the coast, and indicative of that sort of Tasman low convergence. You can really see again though this disparate sort of break in both patterns between the coastal side of things and that in western side of things, which very much signifies that there is some sort of timing issue that models are trying to resolve, which is not unusual this far out. There's still quite a few days to go. So let's have quickly what AIO is saying, and then we'll get out of your hair, Richard. You can see AIO is definitely leaning more towards that surface issue scenario where it's trough, whatever is low, but ECL still going with some great good falls. So it's going to be interesting to see how the battle of these models sort of work themselves out. So this is EC now. I don't think this might be here. Well, okay. All right. There you go. So, okay. So we looked before at EC, which wasn't overly excited about necessarily the chance of a low, but it's extremely excited about Rainfall. Um, that is 250 mils, and that's only 270 hours too. So I don't think the rest of them are. Yeah, so that's not all the runs actually out yet, which is interesting. But there's some pretty massive falls there. So 150 to 250 mils across. Okay, that could be very interesting for a range of places. So, I mean, take that with a bar of salt because obviously we've seen there's some significant difference. But when the ADFD, the Bureau one, and this one sort of link up in terms of the patterns as well, you can see this pattern is very much trough, sort of concentrated wrapping in when you get this sort of hook coming in there. And that also very much, well, it does tend to hint towards some sort of vorticity low sort of as well wrapping into, like, you don't want to read too much into it, but when you get this folding of the precipitation like that, yeah, you come to your own conclusions. I know I would think looking at that straight away, I think there's some sort of something going on there, but that's incredible. When we looked at the wind patterns for EC, and they weren't overly exciting, just to be honest. We did have that hooking in and that troughy sort of stuff, Thursday, Friday, but that's definitely starts to sort of suggest low ECL sort of territory, and then we saw the ensembles as well backed us up significantly. So when you have a deterministic backing up an ensemble like that with these sort of massive falls, definitely worth watching. I mean, GFS still had some pretty decent falls as well, so it didn't give up on that through it. It didn't like necessarily the system that creates it, perhaps, but let's have a look. And so you can see here now, AI EC definitely a little bit different. You can see that disparate connect between the surface to others, the coastal stuff and the inland upper stuff as well. So you can see some, but that's still what we love to see. That as great falls in the west. That's fantastic. I mean, we can't begrudge them that. But yeah, you can see those heavy falls just off the edge there, but still that's not a bad pattern, I guess, in terms of that. And this is another ensemble which is not included in the models that I was looking at, but this is another one. So this is the GFS system, and it's pretty good at actually these far out sort of stuff. And again, this is only 180, so it's this week. It's not that far ahead. And if we just ramp it out a bit, you can see it's going for pretty wet conditions, pretty evident. But you can see, 200, 250 now encroaching the coast and pushing up to 125 to 150 well into the west. I mean, that's some pretty serious rainfall. And you've got patch of, up to 300 just off the Illawarra coast. Yeah, something's happening. And this is significantly different to what happened we saw last time, because none of this rainfall was on the rainfall models last time. It was all off the coast. Nothing was coming onshore. This is onshore this time. So, there is something bubbling away, and I guess we're going to find out as models sort of resolve these things going forward soon. And this is the longer term one. So let's have a look what it's going on. I mean, you can still see it's backing up, and it's only standing up. It's not the full run either. You can see it's still downloading, updating. It's still quite a bit missing. But, there's some pretty massive falls. All right, so Icon, no doubt we'll see Icon will be pretty dry, I'd imagine, because we saw, not bad, I guess, in terms of, don't forget, this is only 120 hours worth, so it's not that far out. But you can see still some pushing in. And again, you get this hooking sort of pattern, which is very trough, trough, suggestive, wrapping in. You get sort of this dry areas here, there's sort of V things, whereas the trough sort of comes in and wraps around. You can see again, massive falls in the west, which is fantastic to see. Really does. They've been pretty dry for so long. UK Met, this will be pretty dry there. Let's see what we've got. I'm not sure know if it's it's just coming out, and you can see it's pretty dry in terms of everything. It's very much the non-excitable model, good old UK Met. Very good at picking up vorticities though, but the rainfall side of things, not that excited. And then we'll just grab CMC, the Canadian one. We'll see it's only up to 5 days. This menu is so very horrible for JavaScript. You see, obviously, CMC, it's always very excitable, like a good Canadian model. Definitely does get very excited about, if there's one drop of moisture, then it's sort of going to give everybody 1,000 millimeters. But in saying that, again, it's backing up that broader picture of that hook. Whether it's a low, whether it's a trough, whatever it works out to be, you can see it's still pretty damn good falls though. I mean, I think we'd be all very happy if we got 100 to 125 mils this week across everywhere. I think that would be everybody pretty happy about that. As long as it just sort of all didn't fall in 6 hours, of course, and spread out maybe across 2 days, it'd be lovely. It'll recharge everything. It'll improve the groundwater. A great recharge heading into winter. And it's still encouraging to see these massive falls out west of the divide as well, which is fantastic to see. I love that. And some big falls pushing in on that sort of wraparound inflow into whatever it's a trough or a low or whatever it's going to be in the southern Illawarra too, which is good. So, that shift those a bit further north in terms of timing and that sort of stuff. And suddenly we could find ourselves over 150, 175. So again, this is the whole complex onion layer that we get when we have these systems. You look at one thing, you think, oh, maybe it's all over Red Row, and then you go and look at the precipitation forecast, and it's screaming, build an ark and, make sure grandma's sort of strapped into her chair and the kids aren't floating down their floaties sort of type behavior. So, yeah, that is what we are facing at the moment. So, in terms of what's coming this week, let's just throw a fishing line out there and saying, I would think I'm pretty leaning towards pretty maybe a deep coastal trough at this stage, especially since we get this very much this V pattern on most of the models we've seen. But in terms of that also can be, an ECL wrapping in as well. These systems, it will very much dry off very quickly away from where the main the main vorticity is and where the circulation is and where it's being squeezed and wrapped into the coast. So, anything's possible. But I think that does tend to lean towards more a deep coastal trough, which, as I said a number of times, they can be prolific rainfall accumulators, more so than a low can. So either way, it looks like we're actually in for some weather for a change. Hooray, hooray! Who says we'll put it back to EC, because I mean that blew my mind, because I literally was expecting EC to be deader than my sense of humor, but clearly it ain't deader, and it's got a better sense of humor than me. And if you're going to look for a rainfall bullseye anywhere, in terms of us finally seeing some activity, well, you couldn't ask for a better sort of scenario than that, could you? Dead bang right on top of us. All right, let's go to some of the comments and questions and stuff like that, and then I'll get you going to your Sunday nights, and obviously we'll keep you updated across the week as this situation unfolds, the ebbs and flows, and we'll do our best. And hello to everybody who's joined since I said hello. I go camping. Lovely to see you. Oh, I think I know who that is. I think that Northern Beaches person. Definitely believe that. I go campings. Hello, Mark, Mr. Bradley. Hello, Peter. Lovely to see you. Will Thursday weather be? It says lightning. I think there will be storms, Oscar, especially if EC comes off, because there's definitely that northeasterly feed coming in and being squeezed quite violently by a trough or a low, whatever it's going to be. Definitely will create storms. So I think we'll definitely see something in that terms. Last question: what's this summer going to bring? El Nino, and does it mean big thunderstorms? No, not big thunderstorms. El Nino, most likely, I'd say. Whether it's a super El Nino, I'm not sold on that yet. I think anything to go by the last few years, the ENSO forecasts have been pretty ordinary in terms of severity. Pretty much spot on in terms of what the general pattern is. I don't know. I think moderate El Nino. Well, we've got to be in for an El Nino, to be fair. Like, it's been pretty neutral or La Nina now for a few years. So we've always got to have the balance in the system, the atmosphere. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be drier, though, unfortunately. I think we're going to be in for I think it'll be pretty hot sort of end of December, January. That will be my take on it. We may see some rain late February next year. We'll see going forward. It's glitchy. Glitchy, okay. Can you tell everybody about my website? I can. If you want to, you better track rainfall in real time. Blah blah blah. Yep, we can do that. I just don't have the link on me, Mr. I Go Camping, right here. Gumboot's going to work out, absolutely. Let's have a look. Milo, hello Milo. I think they are the Milo from Instagram. I think that sends all those awesome photographs in. If I am correct, if I'm not, please yell out and correct me. But I'm definitely sure Milo, I recognize that name. Chatted to you a few times, and all the awesome photographs you send through, which is greatly appreciated. Funky Diva. Oh, hello, Funky Diva. Lovely to see you. It's been a while. What's the TLDR? Because I'm a goober and arrived very late. Well, TLDR is on the screen now. Not sure what the system is going to be, but it looks like there's going to be plenty of moisture or plenty of rainfall. So we'll all cross our fingers and hope that models aren't gaslighting us like they always do. But when you have like such a agreement between the deterministic and the ensembles, like I wouldn't never say the word guaranteed because we all know what happens with it, but it's looking pretty good in terms of everything. Um, uh, Not good for mowing. No, Mr. Sharp, it will not be good for mowing. Your lawnmower will definitely need a snorkel and floaties. Lightning, I think, will definitely be a chance Thursday. I think like Thursday night, but it's going to be embedded, so I wouldn't be too excited about seeing anything other than just lots of flashes and rumbles. That would be pretty about it, I think. Um, Otherwise, it is looking absolutely fascinating, and that's awesome for a change instead of all the dreary stuff we've had for the past 2 months or so. All right, well, that's pretty much all I can say. No questions on there. We've answered most of them. I go camping. Make sure I'll try and dig that link up, and we can share that for sure. Monitoring the rainfall. Um, Otherwise, it has been a pleasure again having a chat with everybody. Oh, when I get these silly IT issues working, but otherwise it is great. I am going to let you go off and have your evening. I'm going to go and make dinner and then get the better half, like usual, back to normality. One of these days I'll tell my story about the last 8 months or 7 months for the hell I've been through, which is why I've sort of not been. Well, no, I haven't been able to do live streams at all. Not had any capacity to do it. And then yeah, other stuff, not really in being able to spend a lot of time online, which is why I haven't responded to a lot of stuff on the forum. I try and squeeze stuff in when I can, but yeah, it's been other focuses, the better half the focus, and I'm sure we can all appreciate focusing on our loved ones is our obviously top priority. And that story will happen one day or another, but my God, I wish I could tell the story and tell who the naughty people were because it probably would bring great embarrassment to those people, but sucked in because they deserve it. Anyway, that's not my prerogative. Prerogative. That's the word. Can't get the brain working at this stage. That's the better halves. Anyway, I've done what I can to support them, and I have appreciated seeing everybody here. And we are going to get back into having live streams, absolutely, and definitely will be live streaming this event. So every evening I don't finish work until 5:30, so it'll be rush to get it going by 6 o'clock. Get these freaking IT issues sorted, but we'll definitely be on here at 6. Do have a quick look. We won't take long because people have commitments, tea, and that sort of stuff. And I know people like to watch their national news and their favourite things and that. So we'll do a short, sharp half-hour catch up. This one's been a bit longer because obviously we haven't caught up with each other. But 6 o'clock tomorrow night, we'll be back on with a fresh update. We'll also have fresh updates in the morning as well with the morning forecast, just with some text and some graphics and keeping you updated. And obviously we'll start throwing out some tracking maps once we are very once I'm locked in and actually committed and agreed that's going to happen. Until then, no, I'm not going to put anything out because that would just be an exercise in futility given what we've seen in the models tonight. It's still all over the place. Oh, Naz, lovely to see you too. Sorry I didn't acknowledge you before. I just saw your name then. Otherwise, have a fantastic. Oh, Damon, lovely to see you too. Thanks for dropping by. Hello, Oxy Misses. Thank you so much as well. So I didn't acknowledge you before. I didn't see you as well. But all lovely. Thank you for your company. It's been amazing to do this again, and we'll definitely see you tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, for our half hour of power, getting into stuff. I'm not sure if this is going to work. If it doesn't work, all well and good. If it does work, even better. But been great to chat to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you online. And laters. Not going to work. So thanks so much for OBS for stuffing my night. But anyway, have a great night, and I will catch you all later. Ciao.